When my youngest Skylar was little, I remember this time that she and I were going to go meet some friends at the playground, and the moms and I, we were going to drink coffee and watch the kids play. So it was kind of a play date for both of us. But that morning, it rained, and so we thought we needed to move the play date indoors. And so I'd offered to host it at my house. But the reality was I knew my house was a messy. I knew that there were little piles everywhere and there were dishes in the sink. And so I quick ran home and I put all the stuff in laundry baskets. And then I quickly took it up the stairs and I dumped that basket into the bathtub. And then I closed the shower curtain so that my whole house appeared like it was neat and organized. This is what I do when things are a mess. What do you do when things in your life are a mess? In today's passage, we see Jesus is being questioned by some Pharisees and scribes because the disciples, they were eating with unclean hands or dirty hands. Now, as good Christians, I think we're often trying to teach ourselves to distance ourselves from the Pharisees and the scribes and try to live more like the disciples. But the reality is that they were trying to preserve their way of life. They tried to preserve their traditions of cleaning and washing during this Roman occupation that they were all living under. It's not really so different than when I tell my children that they need to wash their hands before eating. You see, I'm trying to preserve and protect them from all the germs and things, all the little illnesses and worms that they can get by not washing their hands. So these Pharisees and scribes, sometimes I think we throw them under the bus, but I want you to understand that their intentions were good. So then the question is what's the problem? And why did Jesus kind of call them out on their behavior? You see, the problem is that the Pharisees and scribes, they were so focused on what they were doing that they forgot to examine their own hearts. The problem is that they were trying to live so faithfully, so piously, so good that they ended up judging and there's always this temptation to go out and judge people who aren't doing it quite as good and quite as hard as they are. You see, they thought that they were this shiny appearance of faithfulness. And if I'm honest, sometimes I'm kind of the same way too. I sometimes think that we get in the same trap as the Pharisees we like to throw under the bus. We like to think that we have this right appearance of having our Christian act together, that we're even tempted to believe that we sort of have it together, or that we can earn it enough by working hard enough, and that somehow we are more deserving of God's love and grace than other people. I think if we're honest, sometimes we do like judging other people. Maybe because it makes us feel like we have our act together, that our life isn't quite as messy as their life. I used to have this woman at church who would always tell me, she said, every small town needs a drunk. And what she meant by that was that we all like to judge ourselves against other people. Like, I may have some messes in my life, but my messes are not nearly as bad as their mess. If we're really honest, passing judgment is hard to escape, especially if you're like most of us and you kind of like it so much. It's a little hardwired into us, this comparison that we do with other people, because we want to seem like we are okay. So Jesus calls them out. Jesus says straight to the Pharisees and the scribes, and I think maybe even to us too, it says, "Why do you think that you're any better than they are? Through this judgment between what is clean and what is unclean, you've lost the entire point of faithfulness." So Jesus tells us to beware when our piety, when our actions get in the way of fulfilling the law, which is loving God and loving other people, and loving God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. And what gives us this understanding, if we're so busy trying to follow the rules, we're missing the point. Maybe you're in a time of your life right now where you're feeling a little bit more like the disciples in this passage. You're so acutely aware of your brokenness that you're up at 3 a.m. stewing over all of your shortcomings, all of your past, all the screw-ups that you have done in your life, and you're living your life in guilt and shame. And you're hoping that others just won't see how dirty or unclean you were, or how messy your life really is and how you've become. I guess in Jesus' words, we're all the town drunk. Because Jesus says, for it's within the human heart that evil intentions come. Fornication, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, and folly. All of these things come from within a person. And that's what defiles a person. That's what makes this person a mess. You see, I think if we're really honest, we're both the Pharisees and the disciples, because we're all in this together, and every last one of us are broken. You see, this text, I think it shows us that Jesus clearly sees the ugliness of humans' hearts, but you know what Jesus doesn't do? He doesn't turn away. He doesn't judge it. He sees right through the highly edited versions of ourselves that we go and give out to other people, like on Facebook or Instagram, or even as we show up in the office or the pickup line at school. But Jesus still knows what's lurking in our hearts. And yet, Jesus still loves us. Let me repeat that for you. Jesus knows your heart and still loves you. He knows the places where you fall short, and he still loves you. He knows the dark places that your mind and your body goes to, but you are still loved. He knows the places that are prideful, and Jesus still loves you. So if you're a mess, well, you're in good company, because me too. Here's our questions for today. What messes do you have in your life that you try to hide, like the Pharisees and scribes? Or number 2 is, why do you think we try to hide these? And what's Jesus telling us through this passage?